So in this video, we're going to talk about the second dimension of change, which is skill set. Today, I got a question on my live, and this is a person who was asking me a question about starting a business. And his question was, I'm in college right now, Mansoor, what should I do if I wanted to start a business while being in college? And my answer was, if you are thinking about that, drop out and start a business. Why? Well, because if you're already thinking that you want to begin a business of your own, then that tells me that you're thinking about lifestyle and freedom, and college is not going to prepare you for that. As a matter of fact, college is going to veer you off the path of where you want to go. So the more time that you spend in college, the further away that you're going to get out of your goal. And before you think that I'm reckless in saying this, the reason I shared that is because I lived it. I was a byproduct of that. I graduated from Boston University. I worked my butt off in order for me to get a good GPA, take my SATs, write the best essay. I did everything right. I got the best sponsors in the world, a $2 trillion company on my resume to send me to school. And I still did not get to the school that I wanted to get into. I got rejected from all the Ivy Leagues I applied to. I went to West Virginia University. I got 4.0s in my freshman year, my sophomore year, just because I wanted to transfer and get into a tier A university. And then I finally get accepted in Questrom School of Business at BU, Boston University. And guess what happens? I go there and I also do well in school. Now, all the time that I was there, all I was thinking of was my GPA, my grades. And I was so focused on being textbook smart and acing all my classes because I just wanted to get admitted into the best jobs after that. Well, in my case, I already had a job, but I wanted to be competitive worldwide. And so I wanted to break into investment banking and do all these things. But guess what? What I realized is the fact that what I was preparing myself for is really not my dream. The dream that I had was to become a business owner. I wanted to become financially free. I wanted to live a life of freedom. I wanted to live a lifestyle where I could travel and I could be with my family and I have millions and millions of dollars. And basically I wanted to provide my mom and dad with the life that they've always wished for, but they had to spend 30, 40 years of their life to provide for us. That's what I was going for. Now, I thought that the recipe for that was education. Well, why? Well, because that's the recipe of success that you and I have been fed ever since we were kids. Did your parents ever tell you, go to school, get good grades so you can land a good job and it can pay you well? Well, if you got that advice, then guess what? You got the same advice that I got because that's what my grandfather told me. That's what my mom told me. That's what my dad told me. That's what society has taught us. But the reality of the matter is that's an outdated formula of success because it's a formula of success that has worked for the previous generation. I'm not saying that education is bad. I'm just saying that it's not congruent with the goal that you want. Because if the goal is freedom, then guess what? College prepares you to work for somebody else. And when was the last time you saw an employee live a free life? An employee of a company is just a fancy word of a slave for a company. Why are they slaves? Well, because how much control do you have over your time? Zero. You are getting compensated for your time. That was the same thing that happened back in slavery. Now, we don't use that term anymore, but if you really think about it, it's kind of like that, right? You don't have the freedom that you want to have. And so a lot of people today are reconsidering this formula because they have figured out that that's a broken formula. Back in my father's day, back in my grandfather's day, guess what? Having a college degree was something of value because back then people barely even graduated high school. So whenever you go to college, that's a valuable degree that differentiates you from the pack. Today, if you get a college degree, guess what? The value of a college degree has been so diluted because everybody has it. In addition to that, what does school teach you? School teaches you information. Have you heard of ChatGPT before? Have you ever heard of Claude before? We live in a world right now where information is so readily available for everyone that has access to Wi-Fi, to data. So what are you getting paid for in this economy? If you're not getting paid for information because everybody has access to it, then what is it that puts money in your pocket? You know what it is? It is skill set. And that's the second dimension of transformation. Now, it took me 4 years for me to learn that. Why? Because I spent 4 years in traditional education. I got my bachelor's in finance and economics from Boston University. And then I realized that that degree was equipping me to work for somebody else. Now, if you read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, you know that an A student is usually working for somebody who's a C student. Why? Because the C student's the entrepreneur and the A student's the textbook smart dude who went to college and they end up working for that C plus student because entrepreneurs by default, entrepreneurs are a different type of a breed. So when I graduated from high school, I realized that that degree was equipping me to work for somebody else. And if I were to work for somebody else, then the chances of me building a life of freedom is next to none. Why? Well, because my father never had that. He worked for somebody else. My grandfather also never had that. He worked for somebody else. Everybody around me that works for somebody else, I took a look at their lifestyle and I said, wait, hold on a second. If that's not the type of lifestyle that I want to have for myself, then why am I following that path? It just doesn't make any sense. And then whenever I took a look at everybody who enjoyed a rich life, a life of freedom, where they didn't have to trade time for money, where they had a quality life, a lifestyle, and a standard of life that was the standard that I wanted to have for myself, where they traveled where they traveled the world, where they didn't have to attend to someone whenever they called them, whenever they worked under their own terms, under their time. Whenever I examined those people, none of them were employees. So that was a hint for me that I realized way too long in the equation. So what did I do? I quit my job and I started my first business. Now, when I started my first business, I fell on my face. 12 months later, I was totally bankrupt. That's how I ended up sleeping in my Toyota Prius, because I was literally broke. I had no money for rent. I went from the penthouse paying $2,700 a month in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I had a unit overlooking the city of Boston, a beautiful spot, a luxury apartment, Avalon, North Point. If you guys know the building, you could just look that building up. And then I went from there to a Craigslist post, right? Because that was the only place that I could go to after my eviction. So I rented a room. I rented a room for like $600 from an old lady, and I couldn't even afford to pay her that after my first business failed. And so I ended up sleeping in the car. At that point of time, I realized that the only way for me to get out of the position I was in is for me to shadow somebody else. Is for me to learn from somebody else who had the results that I wanted, because it just dawned on me. The results that I have were not the results I want. Does anybody want to become homeless? Does anybody want to sleep in a Toyota Prius? Of course not. So what I was doing was not getting me the results I wanted. So I asked myself, what should I do to live the life of the people that I wanted to live? Well, I started to examine them, and guess what I found out? I found out that they did one thing more than anything else. They were salespeople. They learned how to sell. They embraced sales. Now, for me, I had this idea that sales was something that was what? That was under me, that I was overqualified for it. Why? Well, because I went to college and I don't need to go, I don't need a college degree for me to get into sales. So why the hell would I do sales? I mean, I'm just too smart. I'm too educated. I'm too good for that. The moment you graduate college, you realize that money was in sales and marketing. The very things that us finance people look down upon, that is where the money is. So for me, after spending 4 years in college, once my business failed, then I spent the next 4 years learning the skill set of millionaires by shadowing a proven mentor, basically unwinding what I've learned the first 4 years, right? So had I learned this from the very beginning, looking back at it in retrospect, did college really help me? Look, I'm not saying that. I'm not dismissing the fact that it actually shaped me. It actually taught me a lot of stuff in terms of work ethic and so on and so forth, and it made me well educated. But going back in time, if I had the choice, I would have never went to college. I would have rather just shadowed a mentor, got into sales, and built the skill set that's going to allow me to build the lifestyle that I wanted to build, which was what? It was sales and marketing. Those were the two first fundamental skill sets that I needed to master. And if I had done that, I would have been much further today than where I'm at right now. That is for a fact. So when I get somebody that asks me today, hey, what should I do if I want to start a business? I'm in college right now. The first thing I'm going to tell you is that drop out. If that's really what you want, then you should drop out. Why? Because what you should be solving for is not information. What you should be solving for is the acquisition of skill set. That's a very different thing from information. School is going to teach you a lot of stuff. You're going to become very smart, very knowledgeable about many different things, and you're going to know what happened in the 18th century and the difference between communism and capitalism, all the type of stuff that doesn't really help you execute in the real world. If you want to increase your value in the marketplace, The second dimension for you to actually transform your life is to build the skill set. Now, here is what most people get wrong. They think that skills take a lot of time, but I'm going to give you the formula for learning skills. Here's the real formula for building a skill set. You want it? Here it is. Skill set is not about time. It's not just about repetition. The formula for a skill set that I've discovered, it's intensity multiplied by time frame. The higher the intensity that you do something in a short amount of time frame, the faster the skill set that you are going to build. I left Boston and I moved over to Chicago to shadow my millionaire mentor, and I've learned a lot of skill set, but guess what? I was too casual with my skills. I was too casual with the time frame. So I did not apply myself as much as I should have. My intensity out of 1 to 10, my intensity from a scale of 1 to 10 was probably a 4. I thought I had a lot of time until 1 year when I was 29 years old and I looked at my business plan and I realized this is the goddamn same business plan that I had for the last 4 years. And I'm watching all my family, my cousins, the people that graduated with me. Not only did they get married, not only do they have kids, now they just bought their first house. And I was there with only $200 in my bank account, wondering how the hell am I going to pay rent that month, right? And I looked at myself, I'm 29 years old, I'm not married, I don't have a family, I don't have any kids, and I just felt stuck in my life, and I realized that I don't have as much time as I thought I did. And so that year, the following year, is when I went from 0 to 3 million. Why? Because I just took that level of intensity and I magnified it. I just multiplied that by 1,000, by 1,000,000%, because it's the same type of activity, I just condensed that in a shorter time. I gave myself 12 months. And you know what the result was? 0 to 3 million. So skill set is the second part of transformation. What you ought to focus on is acquiring a skill. And if you want to acquire a skill set in a fast, in a short time, guess what? And if you want to accumulate, if you want to acquire skills fast, realize that it's not about time. It's about repetition it's about repetition. It's about intensity applied in a certain time frame. Now, I'll give you an example. I gave that example in my previous video, but if you went to the gym, if you said, I'm going to go hit the gym, and I'll hit the gym once a week. Well, if you're going to hit the gym once a week, that's 52 times a year. If you hit the gym 52 times a year, guess what? You are probably going to make some progress. Chances are you're going to make some progress versus if you didn't go to the gym at all. There's no question about that. Now, if you took that 52 times that you were going to hit the gym at, right? If you took that same 52 workouts and you did that in 6 months, your results would have been better. If you took that and you said, you know what, I'm going to do the same 52 workouts 52 days in a row, then your results will be night and day. Well, what happened? You never changed the number. You just condense the time frame, right? So for you to acquire a skill set, that's the lens that you should approach it with, is what is the skill set that I'm solving for? What is the skill set that I need? And then in what time frame am I going to be applying this at? Condense the time frame, increase the intensity, and watch yourself build skills faster than anybody else. I'll give you a different example. Early on in my career, one of the things that I was early on in my career, one of the things that I was terrified of when I first got into sales was the fact that I had a stutter, right? So I was too afraid of the phone. So every time that I would dial the phone, I would just prefer to meet people in person. I was more confident in person in the way that I looked in my, body language a lot more than myself on the phone. For whatever reason, I just preferred meeting people in person than talking with them on the phone. It's probably because in my mind, I have this stutter, and every time I speak with somebody on the phone, for whatever reason, that just comes up. It just comes out. And I had a fear. I literally had a phobia. And I remember this one time when one of my agents came to me, and this was a Monday night. We had something called Phone Zone, where the objective of us coming together at the office was to compete and see how many appointments we could book for the entire week. And so everybody was in that office. We probably were maybe almost like 50 to 100 people in that office, right? It was in Oak Brook, Chicago. And I remember one of my agents came to me. This is a person who I'm supposed to be training, and he came to me with a list of people to call. And I started dialing the phone with him. And I just, at some point, I just looked at him. I said, man, when when are we ever going to get good at this? I sucked on the phone. I was terrified. Like people would pick up and I wouldn't even know what to say. It's as if I swallowed my English. It's as if I couldn't speak English anymore, right? And I was so embarrassed because this was supposed to be a person that I was teaching. This guy was my agent. And I remember that night I left the office and I was super pissed off. I was so angry that I took that script and I went to the McDonald's campus at the Grand Hyatt in Oak Brook, Illinois, and I sat there and I practiced this, I rehearsed the script and I practiced the script. No joke, it was easily 100 times where I set the script, where I practiced and I rehearsed the script with the right tonality, and I recorded myself over 100 times until the sun came up. And I didn't go to sleep that night because I was super angry that I couldn't just master the damn phone. I just couldn't speak on the phone, right? And so I rehearsed that script. It was the level of intensity was so much higher than any time before because of the emotion I felt at the time, and I needed to get good at this. And I gave myself that one night where I was going to become very good at the script. It was one script. It was one page. It wasn't complicated. Why the hell was I not able to just, make the phone call using that script? I just didn't know why. So I gave myself that time for me to master that. And the next thing you know, the following week, we brought on a new person. And when that person came in, he came in with a bunch of phone numbers. That person just knew so many people, and I was the trainer. So I was kind of forced in that role. And I said, you know what? I'm fully prepared. I know the script. And now it was like one of those, it was the moment of reality. Now you're at the spotlight, you're the trainer, and it was just a bunch of phone numbers. And that gave me the reps for me to go about mastering the script. And I got very good at it because I didn't have one or two, three numbers. It wasn't just 2, 3 phone calls I needed to make. It was over 100 phone calls that this person, 100 different contacts that this person gave me. And so I was just going from one call to another, to the third, to the fourth, and I was getting better and better and better until I overcame that fear. And then I started becoming a machine. I was super good at it. I memorized the script. I knew how to say it. It was as if I was, it was just day and night. Everybody looked at me and was like, who is this guy? Like, how is he getting results so fast? Well, the reason I got results so fast because I just condensed the time frame and I increased the intensity. And guess what happened? Boom. The next thing you know, now I have the ability to attract people to my business and scale. And so it didn't take years. It didn't take months. It took one decision and it took pressure. I had to apply that under a specific time frame. And the next thing that you know, then that is a skill set. And the beautiful thing about skills is this. Once you acquire a skill, it's very hard for you to lose that skill. It's like a one-way street, right? Once you acquire the skill, it's very hard for you to lose that skill. And so the acquisition of skill set is something that the second dimension revolves around, right? So if that's the case, the question now becomes, well, what should I do? If I need to acquire a skill set and education or school is not the answer, then what is the skill set that I should really be focused on in order for me to create the type of lifestyle that I want and make the type of income that I want to make, right? If you are somebody out there was wanting to make millions of dollars and you want to succeed, then the number one skill that you ought to focus on is sales. And every single billionaire that I've studied is a master salesperson, regardless of who they be. You could give me any type of person. Why? Well, because sales is really persuasion. Sales is a branch of persuasion. And so anyone, even if they're not selling a product, right? Even if they're selling a service, they're not in commission sales. They're not in the traditional sense of sales. Sales is really the art of persuasion. And persuasion is the ability for you to lead people in the direction that you're trying to get them to, right? So sales is not something that you're born with, contrary to what a lot of people say, because I've trained a lot of salespeople in my time. And sometimes you hear people say that, you know what, I'm just not good at sales. I've tried sales. It just did not work well for me. Listen, let me tell you something. Take it from somebody who struggled in sales. Sales did not come natural to me. Why? Well, because number one, it was not something that I even considered as a career of choice. I had the wrong attitude. I had the wrong lens towards sales. I never embraced sales. I just kind of fell into it. It was the option of my last resort because nobody else would hire me and I ran out of money. So I was just kind of forced into it. So I would listen to a lot of Grant Cardone. I would listen to Jordan Belfort. I would buy all these books, right? Buy all these books over here on this shelf, and I would teach myself sales. And I'm telling you, if you're somebody out there who's listening to this and you're just telling yourself, oh, sales is just not for me, I'm just not born with it. I wasn't born with it. Sales is for you. You just have to stop making excuses and embrace it because it's a learnable skill. And because it's a learnable skill, you can get really, really good at it. Now, are there naturally born salespeople? Sure there are. But who cares? Why does that matter? Why does that matter? Their natural ability to sell doesn't take away from your ability to become masterful at the craft of selling. Now, if sales is the number one skill, what is the second skill that I ought to focus on? Mansoor, you know what? Now I know how to sell. I'm very good at selling. What is the second skill that I should be focused on? The second skill is none other than marketing. Why marketing? Take it from someone who has delayed marketing for many years. I neglected marketing. I never thought that it pertained to me. I never thought that I needed to do it. Matter of fact, I thought this is something that you just hire people to do all the marketing for you. No. Listen, if sales is the ability for you to convert people into customers and get them to put money in your pocket, if sales is the ability for you to convert someone, a prospect, to a customer, then marketing is the ability to get attention in the very first place. Marketing is the ability for you to even get people to become prospects. So if marketing is the ability for you to generate prospects. So if you have the ability to generate a prospect, take somebody who's a bystander, someone who doesn't know anything about your product, and now you turn them into a prospect, someone who's interested in your product, and you have the ability to convert them to customers. So you generate from one side and then you convert them from the other side. Then guess what happened? You just became a money-making machine. You have the ability for you to generate leads and close them at the same time. How could you ever be unemployed? How could you ever have a money issue? There's no way. It doesn't make any sense for you to have a money issue at all. You just have the ultimate control. It doesn't matter what type of economy we're in. It doesn't matter if it's a good economy, a bad economy, an expansionary economy, a contractionary economy. It doesn't matter what it is. If you have the ability for you to generate interest and convert that interest into money, AKA get attention and convert that attention into money, then you have just become a money-making machine. And it's a skill set that you have that nobody could ever take away from you. Those are the two fundamental skill sets that you have to master if you want to become an entrepreneur and a millionaire in 2026. School is not going to teach you that. School is going to teach you all the theory behind that. It's not going to teach you the application. The market doesn't reward theory. Market does not reward knowledge. The market rewards execution. So if you're somebody out there who's concerned and if you're somebody out there who's worried about what the economy will do and what happens if I get laid off or my employer might fire me, it's because you think that what? It's because you think that you're in your position because of somebody else. You don't have control yet. That's not the position that you want to be in. So sales, number one, marketing, number two, and then finally, the third skill set that I would urge you to master would be personal branding. Here's the skill that changed everything for me. You know what it is? It is personal branding. And if you're somebody out there who feels like this is just a marketer's game, just like what I used to think the exact same way. If you think that personal branding is just what marketers do and you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur, you have a real business to operate, you're an operator, you don't need to build a personal brand, think again. Take it from someone who learned this the very hard way. You have to have a personal brand in 2026. Matter of fact, one of the biggest groundbreaking ideas that changed for me this past year is the following. The brand is not the business. The business is the brand. Let me give you an example. Think of The Rock. Think of Kevin Hart. Think of Will Smith. And then think of who. So you have The Rock, you have The Rock, Kevin Hart, Will Smith. You have one category over here, right? And then the second category is who? Think of DiCaprio, think of Brad Pitt, and think of Denzel Washington. So these are all A-list celebrities in Hollywood. What is the difference between category A and category B? You know what the difference is? This group of people, Kevin Hart embraced social media. They built their brand. The Rock went on social media. Will Smith recreated himself back on social media. All these guys recreated themselves and built a social media brand, whereas the other people, still rich, still wealthy, still very famous, still, one of the best in what they do in terms of acting, but they're not on social media. What is the difference between those two? You know what happened with this group of people? They became billionaires, right? Kevin Hart, The Rock, I'm not sure about Will Smith, but Kevin Hart and The Rock, their personal brand made them billions. So The Rock is not an actor. The Rock is a personal brand that happens to act. Kevin Hart is not a comedian. He's a personal brand that happens to do stand-up comedy. Conor McGregor is not a UFC fighter. He's a personal brand that happens to fight. Think of Conor McGregor. Conor comes into the UFC with a span of 5 years. He built his personal brand, and then at the end of it, made over $500,000. I think he made what? He made $500 million or $600 million what he sold Proper 12 with. Why? He sold Proper 12 for $600 million. I believe that's the number, if I'm not mistaken, or at least it was somewhere close to it. He sold his brand, his tequila company, for $600 million. Why? Because of the personal brand that he developed inside the cage. His brand, his fame inside the cage, the distribution that he has, the amount of eyeballs and attention that guy could get, he used the UFC as an arena. That arena is what got him the attention and the eyeballs. The distribution that he has because of that is what allowed him to sell a tequila company for $600 million. You think The Rock is any different? It's the same thing. You think The Rock is an actor? No. Acting is his arena. It's his worldwide arena. Every time he produces a movie, what he's doing is he's depositing in his personal brand. The moment that he launches any product out there, of course, he's going to become a billionaire. He's going to sell millions and billions of dollars. Why? Because of the distribution and the eyeballs and the attention that guy has. So you think he's an actor first? No, he's a personal brand first. It's the exact same formula with Kevin Hart. You know who's the best example of this? The Kardashians. You think the Kardashians built such an amazing product, that's why they became billionaires? That's not the case. They became billionaires because they knew how to mastered the art of getting attention. It's not the best product that makes you a billionaire. You know what it is? It's the most known product that makes you a billionaire. As a matter of fact, I'll prove that to you. Think of the best pizza that you ever had. Let's just say, for example, you enjoy pizza, right? That's your favorite cuisine, or maybe you happen to like burgers. Think about your favorite food, and then think about the best restaurant in the world that you've ever tasted that. Let's just say that it's pizza. Well, if it's pizza, think about the best restaurant you've ever had a pizza at. The best one ever. Chances are it's not Domino's. Chances are it's not Pizza Hut. If you said it's burgers, chances are it wasn't Shake Shack. Chances are it wasn't McDonald's, right? It wasn't any of those big franchises. If you're a coffee guy and you love coffee, what is the best coffee that you've ever had in your entire life? Chances are it wasn't Starbucks. Let me ask you, which one of those made the most amount of money? Was it the best or was it the most known? It's always the most known. So the point here that I'm making about building a personal brand is the fact that whatever you do, you have to approach it from the lens of what I do for work is just depositing and building my personal brand. Because if you have a personal brand and you have distribution, you have leverage, then you have the ability to do what nobody else could do. You have an advantage that you could play that those who don't have a personal brand could never play to the same advantage. I'll give you an example. I built a 250-person agency over the span of 3 years. Then one person that I partnered up with who had over 1 million followers on social media with one post, one swipe up, in one post brought in more than 7,000 agents, more than what I couldn't have touched in a span of 3 years. I spent 3 years of my life recruiting and building agents, built over 250 agents over the span of 3 years. And then one person with over 1 million followers, with one swipe up, with one story, with one post, does over 7,000 recruits overnight. That's the power of having a personal brand. So if you have sales as a skill set, then you have marketing as a skill set, and you add to that personal branding, you have set yourself up to make millions. There's no way no way. With those three skills, just those three, if you have those three in 2026 and that's all you focus on acquiring this year, there is no way for you not to make a seven-figure income. It's mathematically impossible. Mathematically impossible for you to go below seven figures. You know how to generate attention and you know how to convert that attention, and you have the leverage of having distribution and a personal brand, and you want to tell me that you can't make a seven-figure income? Wake up. I don't know anybody that has those three skill sets that does not make a seven-figure income. So I just gave you the answer. You want to become a millionaire. Guess what? Is school going to get you there? No. The answer is no. It is those three skills that you have to master and develop. It does not take a lot of time, as we've learned. It does not take a lot of time for you to master that. All you need to do is for you to shorten, condense the time frame, increase the intensity, master those three, combine them with the first dimension, which is identity, and then number three, leverage, which is where personal branding falls under. It's a skill set that also falls under the dimension of strategy. So you get all of those three and watch what happens to your bank account. Now, if this video added some value for you, then guess what you need to do? You need to subscribe to the channel and share this with someone who's in the grind today, who probably has the same aspirations as you do, wants to become a millionaire, just needs a level of guidance. Send them this channel, subscribe, and I will continue to add value to you on a daily basis by dropping a video. But all I ask of you is for you to subscribe and share the content. That being said, guys, until next time, I'll see you on the next episode. Let's go.